So the Seattle Seahawks, what is their future? I mean, they just came off a 7-10 season this year. Russell Wilson had 3,000 yards, 25 TDs, six picks. I mean, he missed 3 games with a broken finger. In hindsight, his stats are good, but he really, honestly, had the worst year of his career. He was missing a lot of throws. He just timing wasn't right, and clearly the broken finger or the middle finger, which he broke, clearly impacted him more than the 3 games that he missed. Obviously, did not play well against Washington, a few other teams, but so there's a lot of bright spots from this team. Honestly, I mean they won. I mean their division was tough. They did finish in last. I mean the Niners, Cardinals, and Rams all made the playoffs this year. Rashad Penny was a bright spot of the team. Let's start with him. 749 rush yards, 6 touchdowns. He had 6.3 yards per carry, which led the NFL. He had 190 yards, 170, and 135 in the last 3 games. So he really showed what he can do, and he might get resign with the Seahawks, or he might test the waters in free agency because his contract is up after this year, and he really showed. And I would honestly bring him back as a Seahawks fan. I think he was fantastic. Carson's injured a lot, and I think when both of them are healthy, they could give Penny a bigger role, maybe on third downs, since he can catch the ball at the backfield. So I think they could be a great 1-2 punch like what the Browns have with Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I don't know if they would be that good, but I mean Rashad Penny, if he played a full season, maybe he would have like 1,200, 1,300 yards at this pace. So he's a great player. And now Tyler Lockett, he had a pretty good season too. 73 receptions, 1,175 yards, 8 touchdowns. And Metcalf, I mean, sort of a worse season from last year. He didn't even have 1,000 yards, only 967, 12 TDs, but the problem, this team was just mediocre at best, so that's why they finished 7-10. They were 23 or 23rd in the league in yards per game, and on defense they were 17, or on offense, excuse me, they were 17th in points per game at 22.3. But the big thing that scares me as a fan moving forward is they were last in plays per game at 56.1, which is really bad. I mean, they played at a slow pace, a lot of three and outs. Russ got sacked a bunch. They need to fix the O line, and they didn't have a great time of possession, clearly, since they were last in plays. And the defense, it was even worse than the offense. I'm surprised this team won 7 games with this defense. They were 31st in pass yards allowed per game, 270, which is 270 yards a game. They were 30th in opponents' yards per game, which is 383 yards, 17th in rush yards allowed per game, 113. So they were middle of the pack in allowing rush yards. But a big thing that's been hurting the Seahawks for the past, not even this season, but the last maybe up to 5 years ago, 21st in sacks. They only had 34, and they really cannot get artificial pressure. They really go most from watching. They get most of their sacks from Jamal Adams off the edge blitzing, and other people like Carlos Dunlap, who had a fantastic year as a veteran. He had a 72.4 Pro Football Focus grade, 8.5 sacks, and Jordan Brooks led the team in tackles. Him and Bobby Wagner had the most tackles as a duo this season, but Brooks wasn't that great in coverage, and led to a 57.3 PFF grade. Bobby Wagner, of course, the future Hall of Famer. He was great this year as always. He's going to be probably first team All Pro, as the best linebacker in the NFL. So Quandre Diggs, I mean, he was one of the best free safeties in the NFL this year. He made the Pro Bowl. He had 5 interceptions this year and a 71.9 PFF grade. Him and Jamal Adams really held down the fort in the secondary, but the corners were pretty average. And obviously the front four were not up to par as what the Seahawks are used to having. Jamal Adams, I mean, he missed 5 games. He had 2 picks, a 60 PFF grade. He was fine this year. I mean, he's a strong safety. You can't expect him to be in coverage all the time and make so many plays. DJ Reed was the other bright spot of the team. So this team really only has only 5 or 6 good defenders, and that's clearly why they're pretty mediocre defense, or pretty awful. They only have 5 good players out of the 11. There's 11 people on the field. They got to fix that this offseason. DJ Reed, 75 PFF grade. And he had 10 passes defense. He was a great corner this year. So that was sort of a recap of the 2021 season. So let's move into what does this team need? Like, what is the Seahawks' future? They need a better offensive line and a better defensive line. Clearly, they cannot get artificial pressure, as I mentioned earlier. They have to blitz a lot, and that's not good. Getting to the quarterback with your front four or even front seven is totally it's extremely important if you want to build a championship defense, and getting those extra quarterback hits and making the quarterback throw the ball a little earlier than they want. And they need a better offensive line because they're last in plays per game. They need to execute drives. They need to hold on to the ball. They obviously the running lanes were there for Rashad Penny, but in pass protection they were pretty awful this season. The bright spot this team is moving forward is they do actually have some cap space, and they've 60 million. They spent 60 million on defense this year, which is 27th, and where you spend your money, your results are, because they were 30th in total defense, and they're clearly not spending enough money. And they spent 89 million this year on offense, which is ninth. And I do think they have a good offense. And Russell Wilson, when he's fully healthy, can be a top three quarterback in this league. We've seen that year in and year out. He had 40 touchdowns last year. Didn't even have a bad year this year, looking at the stats, but clearly was shaky in a lot of games down the stretch. They never made big plays. But they're gonna have to re-sign Dwayne Brown at the first. That's the first thing I would do. They need a left tackle, and they don't have their first round pick this year, which was given to the Jets in the Jamal Adams deal. So I would extend Dwayne Brown. He's a good left tackle. He's a veteran. He's only got a few more years left. Might as well ride it out with him, and then maybe you could draft a backup left tackle in the later rounds, which you could groom for when Dwayne Brown retires. Quandre Diggs is unrestricted. He's, as I said earlier, one of the best free safeties in the NFL. Definitely would resign him. He got injured towards the end of the year, but he definitely should get the bag like Jamal Adams. So the Seahawks have their safety secured for the next few seasons. They really should work on that. And Rashad Penny's unrestricted. As I said earlier, I would bring him back. He was flat out incredible the last 5 weeks of the season. He definitely deserves another chance and another year in this offense. I like his agility and athleticism. So I would address that. And DK Metcalf, you don't have to extend him this off season, but I probably would this year and next year before you have to franchise tag him. I think DK should wants to stay here. As long as Russell Wilson's staying here, I think they're going to be a great tandem, just like him and Lockett. So I would definitely keep him. And Bobby Wagner has one more year, so in 2023 you're going to have to make a decision if you want to keep him. If he keeps playing at this incredible pace, he should get re-signed. I would re-sign him, obviously. And really, I mean, this team, as I said, 27 spent on defense. A lot of these guys are first or second years, like Rasheem Green, Darrell Taylor. Dunlap's making dirt cheap. I mean, he's a veteran, but they really need to spend more of their cap space on the offensive line. And only Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, and Jamal Adams are locked up past the 2023 season. And they're going to have to do something with Pete Carroll. I mean, I think I would keep him. I don't think any changes are going to be made there. I mean, he's extended until 2025. He is the oldest coach in the NFL. I mean, so I don't think he's going anywhere. Russell Wilson actually said he doesn't want to go anywhere. So they're going to have to hit on some of the draft picks they have. So Pete Carroll, he had one bad year. I don't think they would get rid of him. So some of the they don't have a first round pick this year, the Seahawks. So John Schneider and Pete Carroll are going to have to revamp this defense. And Pete Carroll's right. He wants to retool. I think that's what they need to do. They have a second round pick this year, 41st overall, a third rounder, a 72nd overall, fourth, 113th, and fifth, 151st. And who cares about the sixth and seventh rounders? I mean, and the Seahawks are known for finding gems in the later rounds, but not really the case recently. So I think that second round pick, I would take a offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. You got to help Russell Wilson out. I mean, I'm happy he's gonna stay. I mean, it's so hard to find a quarterback in the NFL. We've seen so many busts, even rookies this year that have not played up to par. So keeping Russell Wilson, and it's great that he wants to stay. They're gonna have to fix the defense and offensive line for him if they want to make a Super Bowl run. But this Seahawks team overall, I wouldn't say that they're doomed in the future, but they just need to retool. And if they could figure out how to get some pressure and give Wilson another 1 to 2 offensive linemen that could help out with Dwayne Brown and Damian Lewis, they would be, I think they could win the NFC West again. I mean, they only won it a year ago. Obviously, Arizona shot up this year. They were fantastic. The Rams added Stafford, but they beat them. They swept the 49ers this year, and everyone forgets about that. I do think if Russell Wilson was healthy for the whole season, we would see them at 10-7 and in the playoffs. They definitely would be in the Rams one of the two times. He got injured in that first matchup actually, so this future is not completely dead. They have really good players: Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf. Those are some attractive players. Maybe some free agents will want to come join. Pete Carroll's built a great culture. Seattle's not the worst city in the world either. I mean, it's better than Jacksonville or some of these other terrible teams like Detroit. But this team really reminds me of the Saints. The 2014 to 2016 Saints. They had three straight 7-9 seasons where they had great offense, but they spent no money on the defense, and they were horrible. So the Seahawks, I don't think they'll go 7-10 next season, but if they don't fix the defense and spend money on it, it will end up like that way. And once we saw Drew Brees get Cameron Jordan, Davenport, and they drafted Lattimore, the Saints had an elite defense. So the Seahawks, clearly the winning formula for most teams and the Seahawks has been get an elite defense, and they could definitely make a run with Russell Wilson and the offensive weapons he has. I don't think we need to touch the offensive weapons at all, but I don't want this team to go 7-10 3 straight years in the middle of Russell Wilson's prime, which happened to Drew Brees. So the future, it's a little uncertain because this is a big draft for them without a first rounder. If they could get a few starters, that would really help out. But other than that, yeah, so that is the Seahawks' future. I do think they're not in the worst position ever, but not the best because they don't have a first, and they have they have a good amount of cap space to wiggle room with, but they're gonna have to spend that money, the bulk of that money, re-signing some of their top players. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.